We're going to wait for the cards to be read. This video is real time, so basically the final bell just rang. I'm History Controversy. This is History Controversy Live. Ricky Burns. Okay, put it this way. He's a legend over in Scotland. They're only 3-division world champion. Now, understand the boxing landscape in Scotland. He's a super megastar over there. But at this point in time, it seems as though in this landscape of the 140-pound division, it looks like, and I'm just being honest, that he may not reach this status of being world champion again. Many thought that he wouldn't be this far. He could have won another round in the very easy 140-pound rankings of the WBA and just held on to that WBA title and not went after the unification against an unknown fighter. As far as there's not enough footage out there of him for us to get a solid understanding of who he is. So now we know who Julius Indongo is. Remember, in his last fight, he had got a first-round knockout. That's how he won, cold knockout. That's how he won that IBF title. So if you don't know, this fight was for Ricky Burns, WBA, the only WBA champion at 140 pounds, and Julius Indongo's IBF title. To trace that title back to his lineage, it was that title that Amir Khan had lost to Lamont Peterson, but Lamont Peterson failed the drug test, even though people felt that Amir Khan won the fight, but Lamont Peterson failed the drug test and still got to keep the belt. So that's the belt. We know we're going to hear at least one fucked up card because it's in Scotland, right? In my opinion, Indongo won every round. If you want to be generous, you can give one round to Ricky Burns. But I'm interested to hear these cards. Remember, this is my first time hearing this. This is a live video. You know you're going to have at least one fucked up card, right? Also want to hear what Ricky Burns has to say. Why they taking so long to tally up the scores? By the way, please subscribe. Yo, they really taking a long time to tally up those scores.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of World Championship Boxing, the judges' scorecards read: Howard Foster scores the contest 121-108.
Okay.
Judge Yannick scores the contest 118-110. And Judge Torres scores the contest 116-112.
The knew it.
3 judges are in favour of your winner. Well, he's still the IBF, but IBF now he's on the WBA.
116, 112. My asshole. I'm glad they try to rob that brother, man. So now I want to see. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. Now here's the nitty gritty. You have Terrence Crawford, who's the WBC and WBO 140-pound champion. He's taking on Felix Diaz in a very, very big fight to hardcore boxing fans. The issue with the Felix Diaz fight, in my opinion, or the story behind it is, Felix Diaz should have had that win over Lamont Peterson, and he got the win over Sammy Vasquez. Very good, even though he's Dominican, Cuban school-ish type fighter, you know. Also, he has a lot of movement, you know, so it's going to be interesting. I believe he's about 5'5". It's going to be interesting to see how Terrence Crawford is going to be able to cut off the ring and deal with a boxer who actually has some really good boxing skills. The last one was Gamboa, but Gamboa was too small, and Gamboa didn't choose the box.
But now I'm glad that they are watching it live. I believe that the company will get a special day off because my president will too much sport. I don't believe so. It's so amazing for the whole Africa.
I'm happy for you.
Oh, I'm very happy. I came to see all around the Black MTC, the 9 men for sponsoring for boxing in Namibia. So this is so grateful, and I'm very happy for the fans that came in numbers, although they couldn't. Yeah. And I'm very proud of him for opening my doors. Now everyone can see me. Thank you very much.
Well done, and congratulations. Ricky, before you leave the ring, can we grab a quick word with you as well? Ricky, hard luck tonight. What went wrong?
Sure, the better man won. No excuses. It was so awkward.
He didn't have to take the fight.
Before that, I'm going to have all the doubters, Ricky's finished and that, but Joe, Tony, we sit down ready and we'll work out what it's next, but definitely I'll come again.
Was it just a case of you never quite got close enough to closing the gap and working out his southpaw or tricky style?
Not the plan, Ricky, obviously, the first few rounds just great. Obviously, we wanted to do his power. First couple of rounds, I know he could hit, so we were just trying to obviously take his thing out of him. But then obviously the pace slowed down a bit with him. He was starting the round fast, and I just couldn't see obviously the height and reach advantage. I just couldn't get obviously no, was just out of distance and he was catching me. You know, I was missing, but especially the last couple of rounds I was falling about to try to get him. But no, the better man won on tonight, no excuses.
Hard luck tonight.
Basically, he said, you know, the height and the reach and the activity. You know, what a lot of people, what I was realizing on social media was relying on Julius Indongo. They were saying, well, how can he keep up this movement and his activity for 12 rounds? He did, put it this way, he didn't gas out or anything, but you did notice that the bounce in his step, that the bounce that he had in his step was gone, you know, I would say around like round 9 or so. You know, but for the most part, he clearly outworked him, and from the opening bell, you can tell he was not trying to, like, leave it up to the judges. And he did enough, even though he didn't get the knockout, to if he would have got robbed there tonight, it would have been like one of the biggest robberies, if not like blatant robberies in history. Like, you know, because Ricky Burns just couldn't do nothing, and he wasn't doing anything. And you can tell that each time Ricky Burns was trying to pressure him, Indongo would crack him with something, and Ricky Burns would go back into a shell. You know, so now getting back to what I was saying is, you got now Indongo, who's in a good situation, because looking around him, looking at the 140-pound division, as I said, there's only 2 champions in the 140-pound division. There's Terrence Crawford, and now there's Julius Indongo. Julius Indongo just unified. So now Julius Indongo can wait for Terrence Crawford's team or Felix Diaz's team, whoever win that fight, to fight in a unification to be undisputed champion of the world. Julius Indongo, if he plays his cards right, and of course he has to win the fight, if he plays his cards right, he can be the next undisputed champion and the first undisputed champion since what, 2006, when Jermaine Taylor beat Bernard Hopkins. It's crazy. You know, so for him, that's a, you know, they can make a movie out of that shit over there where he's from. You know how he just came out of nowhere, first round knockout, and then lucked up and got into a unification with Ricky Burns, beat Ricky Burns. Now they need, and I just hope that his team is smart enough, and that they're and that they're good enough, but also patient to understand the situation that they're in with those 2 titles. So you may think, can somebody throw a monkey wrench into things? Well, one good thing is it is the WBA, and the WBA, you know, be on some bullshit, but at the same time, there's not anybody that's really remotely close to the WBA, I can say, having the WBA order him to fight. And also, if his team is really adamant about going after Terrence Crawford, or the winner of Terrence Crawford Diaz next, then they would be at HBO, you know, and they would be at that fight. And also, you know, they would let the WBA and the IBF know, like, listen, don't interfere with this. We're trying to become undisputed. I know these other promoters are coming at y'all, trying to get a shot at us to get our belts, but, you know, just, you know, we're trying to fight Terrence Crawford. So, one fighter out there, his name is Sergey Lipinets, I believe. I saw him fight on Showbox, I believe it was. He's an Al Heyman fighter. He's undefeated, and basically the IBF could order, you know, Indongo to fight him. You got a Career Relak, who Ricky Burns had beat. You know, the WBA could order that. You got a Miri Ma, you know, but he may want the Terrence Crawford fight because that's bigger money. You know, and he's a Don King fighter than that WBA belt that that Julius Indongo has. And also, you have to think about what is the perception that Julius Indongo is going to give off to other fighters. Do you look at Julius Indongo as being a fighter that fighters are going to try to avoid because he's like too slick and he's active and you know he can potentially outbox you, you know, so high risk, you know, low reward type of situation? But when you got those 2 belts at 140 pounds, and the fact that he just literally came out of nowhere, he's not going to drop those belts. Somebody's got to beat him. So this is a very, very interesting situation. I'm hoping that Top Rank and the Bella Entertainment or whoever is getting on the phone with him now to say, listen, whoever wins between Crawford versus Diaz, we want you, you know, because that makes perfect sense. Julius Indongo, Felix Diaz, or Terence Crawford could be undisputed champion before Sergey Kovalev, Andre Ward, Adonis Stevenson. That's the next closest. And before Golovkin or Canelo or, you know, the goal is to have all the belts. And then when you have all the belts, you call the shots at the 140-pound division or any division that you know, if people want to fight, if people want to become champion in a division, guess what? They got to go through you. And that trickles down to you. Yeah, it's going to be some fights that you're going to have to fight mandatory, not big money fights. But when that big money name come along and you still winning, guess what? They want to be a champion. They got to go through you. See what I'm saying? On T-Street Controversy, this is T-Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. You know, shout out to Ricky Burns. He didn't talk about retiring. So it's like this. He can still get good fights, you know. They can still build that him versus Crolla, right? Anthony Crolla, right? You know, so now it's just time to stack his bread and maybe make one more title run. Why not? Why not?